In this section, we're first going to learn about exterior angle measures. An exterior angle of a triangle is an angle formed by a side and an extension of an adjacent side. For each exterior angle of a triangle, the two non-adjacent interior angles are its remote interior angles. Okay, so if we look at this picture of this triangle here, okay, I can see I've got the triangle where the angles number 1, 2, and 3 are on the inside of the triangle. And I've extended this side over here, which has created this fourth angle. Angle number 4 is not inside of the triangle, so it's not one of the interior angles. Since it's on the outside, that's why we call it an exterior angle. All right. So angle 4 is adjacent to angle 1 because they share a common vertex. They also share a common ray, but they don't have any common interior points. All right, so angle 4 and angle 1 are adjacent to each other. The two non-adjacent interior angles, in this case angle 2 and angle 3, are the remote interior angles for angle number 4. In question number 10, they ask us if the measure of angle 2 is 68 degrees and the measure of angle 3 is 42 degrees, then what is the measure of angle number 4? So they want to know what's the measure of that exterior angle. Okay, so let's fill in our picture. The measure of angle 2, that's 68 degrees. And the measure of angle 3, that one right there, is 42 degrees. What I'm going to do is figure out the measure of angle 1 because that'll help me get to the measure of angle 4. Again, if I have a triangle here, I learned earlier that the measure of the three interior angles of the triangle have to add up to 180 degrees. So to get the measure of angle 1, I'm going to take that measurement and I'm going to add angle 2, which was 68 degrees. And I'm going to add angle 3, which was 42 degrees. And the sum of those three angles will have to be 180 degrees because the angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. I'll start by adding the ones that I know. So I'm going to have the measure of angle 1 plus 68 plus 42. That's going to be equal to 110 degrees equals 180 degrees. So if we just subtract 110 from each side, then the measure of angle 1 must be 70 degrees. So this is a 70-degree angle right here. Now to get the measure, excuse me, I labeled the wrong angle. Not angle number 4, but angle number 1 is 70 degrees. Now to get the measure of angle number 4, well, I know that angle 1 and angle 4 form this straight angle right here. So these are called supplementary angles. So to get the measure of angle 4, because they form a straight angle, they have to add up to 180. I'm just going to do 180 minus 70 because that was the measure of angle 1. And that means that the measure of angle 4 must be 110 degrees. So this angle here is a 110-degree angle. What do you notice about the relationship between the exterior angle and the remote interior angles? Okay, so I just found out that the measure of angle 4, the exterior angle, was 110 degrees, and my remote interior angles for angle 4 were angle 2 and angle 3. Angle 2 was 68 degrees, and angle 3 was 42 degrees. And if you remember back over here when we did our work, 68 plus 42 is 110 degrees. Okay, so the sum of those two angles was equal to the sum of the exterior angle. And that will always happen. Okay, we can say that the measure of the exterior angle, is equal to the sum of the remote interior angles. Okay, in this picture up above, the measure of angle 4 is equal to the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 3. We found out that angle 4 was 110 degrees, angle 2 was 68 degrees, and angle 3 was 42 degrees. And if you add 68 with 42, well, 110 equals 110 degrees. Okay, so the measure of the exterior angle will always be equal to the sum of the two remote interior angles. In our next example, they want us to find the measure of angle CBD. All right, if I follow the letters here, angle CBD, that is this angle right here, which is currently labeled as 22x plus 4. They want us to figure out what the measure of this angle is, okay? And I can see I've got this angle up here, which is labeled as 15x plus 5, and I have an exterior angle out here that's 120 degrees. And if I remember from before, that the exterior angle is equal to the sum of the two remote interior angles. All right, this unlabeled angle is adjacent to 120. So the other two angles in the triangle would be the remote interior angles. The sum of these two angles has to be equal to the value of the measure of the exterior angle. So I can create an equation where if I add these two angles together, so I'll start by writing 15x plus 5 plus 22x plus 4. All right, the sum of these two angles is going to have to be equal to the exterior angle, which is 120 degrees. Okay, I can simplify my equation so that it becomes a two-step equation. 15x and 22x makes 37x. 5 plus 4 is 9. And again, it has to be equal to 120, which was the exterior angle. Okay, so now what we can do on each side, isolate the variable term by subtracting 9. That means 37x is equal to 111. And then if we divide each side by 37, then x is going to be equal to 3. 111 divided by 37 is equal to 3. So now I know the value of x, which means I can substitute that into this expression to figure out the measure of angle CBD. So if I have 22x plus 4, I'm going to do 22 times 3 plus 4. 22 times 3 is 66. And if you add 4 to 66, you get 70. So this angle must be 70 degrees. The measure of angle CBD equals 70 degrees. In the next section, we're going to learn about angles of isosceles triangles. Recall that an isosceles triangle is a triangle with two equal sides. All right, and I can tell from this picture that this is isosceles because of the markings, all right? These two sides have the same marking, so they are equal to each other. This one doesn't have the same marking, so it is a different measure from the other two sides. So this is an isosceles triangle. Isosceles triangles also have two congruent angles, which are known as the base angles. The base angles are located opposite of the two congruent sides. Okay, so if you find one of the congruent sides, so this is one of the congruent sides, right, the angle that's opposite or across from that, which would be this angle down here, that's one of the base angles. Okay, if we do the same thing with the other congruent side, here's the congruent side, the angle that's opposite or across from that down here, this angle is also one of the base angles. Okay, so we can label these. This one right here is a base angle. And this one right here is also a base angle. Okay, the base angles are congruent to each other. All right, they have the same exact measurement. So if you go across from the two congruent sides, you'll find the two congruent base angles. The third unequal angle is called the vertex angle. So this angle up here is not congruent to the other two. I'll put two little markings on it right there. And this angle then is the vertex angle. Notice that the vertex angle is across from the side that is not congruent to the other two congruent sides. Okay, so every isosceles triangle will have two base angles and a vertex angle. What we want to be able to do is try to figure out the measures of the missing angles in an isosceles triangle if I give you either one of the base angles or the vertex angle. So if I take a look at my examples underneath, 12, 13, and 14, let's see if we can figure out the measures of the other two angles in the triangles. Okay, if I look at example number 12, Across from the two congruent sides are the two congruent base angles. So these two missing angles are the base angles, which means that this is the vertex angle, 70 degrees. Okay, I know that both of the base angles are equal to each other, and I know all three angles have to add up to 180. So if I start by subtracting the vertex angle, 180 minus 70 equals 110. That means that the other two angles have to add up to 110 degrees. And because they're equal to each other, I can simply take 110 and divide it by 2, and that's going to give me 55 degrees. So this is a 55-degree angle, and this is also a 55-degree angle. In example 13, okay, again, I have two missing angles. If I go across from the two congruent sides, I have the base angle. So that's a base angle. And the angle that was given was 50 degrees. That also is a base angle. The base angles are congruent to each other. So if this base angle is 50, then this base angle must also be 50 degrees. Now I've got to figure out the measure of the vertex angle. And again, all three angles in a triangle add up to 180. So I know 50 plus 50 equals 100. 180 minus 100 equals 80. So this has to be an 80-degree angle. In example number 14, okay, again, if you go across from the two congruent sides, you're going to have the two congruent base angles, which are the two missing angles in this triangle. So 65 is going to be the vertex angle. I know that all three angles add up to 180, so I can start by doing 180 minus 165. Excuse me, 65, not 165. 180 minus 65. And that means that the other two angles here are going to have a sum of 115 degrees. Because they're equal to each other, I can simply take 115 and divide by 2. And if you do that, that means that each of the base angles is going to have to equal 57.5 degrees. So this is a 57.5 degree base angle, and this is also a 57.5 degree base angle. In example 15, they want us to find the measure of each angle in the figure below. So I have a triangle, and I can see that all three angles are currently missing. They've all been labeled algebraically. We have x, and we have 2x plus 4. Since I see that I have two angles that are the same measurement, x and x, that means that this has to be an isosceles triangle. Okay, so if I go across from that angle, this is one of the congruent sides. And if I go across from this angle, this is the other congruent side. So these are the base angles down here, and this is the vertex angle. Now, in a triangle, I know all three angles will add up to 180 degrees. So I can start by writing 2x plus 4 plus x equals 180. All right, if I simplify this down, 2x plus x, that's going to be 4x plus 4 equals 180. So I've got my two-step equation now. And I'm going to start by subtracting 4 from each side, which means that 4x is equal to 176. Now I'm going to divide each side by 4, which means that x is going to have a value of 44. Okay, so now I know the measure of the base angles. This is a base angle of 44 degrees. This is a base angle of 44 degrees. And now I need to just get this angle right here. So I'll substitute in 44 for x. All right, 2 times 44 makes 88. And 88 plus 4 is 92. So this would be a 92-degree angle. And again, I can just make sure that I did this correctly. If I add up all the angles, it should make 180. 44 plus 44 is 88. Add on the 92, and there it is. All three angles will have a sum of 180 degrees.